Hey everybody, how's it going? Doing another video here. This time we're looking at the Tier 9 American tank destroyer, the mighty, the feared, the T30. This wasn't the original American Tier 9 tank destroyer in the game, and when this tank and its entire tech tree were introduced, these were the first turreted tank destroyers in the game. A little bit of a novelty, and to a degree they still are, just because most tank destroyers in this game, when you think tank destroyer, you're thinking of a big old gun with a whole bunch of penetration, lots of alpha damage, or crazy DPM on a machine, and it's fixed into a casement. And that kind of defines a lot of tank destroyers and kind of how they play as well. These are definitely unique in that regard, and one of the reasons why I play this in its tech tree tank destroyers more than most. I don't own too many tank destroyers. Reason for that is even though you can have some pretty crazy games and tank destroyers have massive cannons and lots of penetration that are kind of on the surface level, really attractive. As a whole, they're a lot less flexible. And that's what I really like about the T30. So, what's really good about this tank and what was great about it when it first came out? The most obvious point being where we talked about it has a turret. So, you can, as you see me here, when you're going up on hills, you can turn to the left, you can turn to the right, you can shoot over the front. You have that flexibility that comes with a turret as opposed to just having your firing traverse locked to the front like all our tank destroyers do. Not only that, you also have 10 degrees of gun depression, so a combination of a turret that's pretty well armored with gun depression means that you can really kind of get up more forward in a lot of games, and you don't really think too much that tank destroyers are pushing forward in a way that heavy tanks kind of do or medium tanks do. But when you're thinking about battle impact and what you can contribute to a team, I just find it that tank destroyers with turrets offer just a couple more options for you to play and a couple more ways to really help out your team win a battle. It's really why I like these machines. So that turret, it's big, it's fat. You're looking at it right here on screen, and it looks really familiar. This is effectively a Tier 7 heavy tank, which is the T29 with a big old 155 millimeter cannon slapped onto it. So your gun mantlet is 279 millimeters thick, which is a pretty good amount of armor. This is a Tier 9. This isn't a Tier 10 tank destroyer. It does have some areas behind the gun mantlet that have no armor and some that do. So it's not always as cut and dry if you have 279 plus penetration that you're going to get through it. Especially if you use your 10 degrees of gun depression, that's also going to help increase the effective thickness of that gun mantlet and the rest of the armor as well. You will kind of have some problems, as we've discussed, with the armor on this tank working because armor in general in World of Tanks, unfortunately, the reality is if people are inclined to shoot really high penetration rounds, they could get some pretty crazy high penetration rolls, and even the toughest armor becomes fallible. So you want to be a bit smart when you're playing this tank. You don't want to give a nice, easy shot at your turret and sit still. But if you're fighting equal and lower tier tanks, you could pretty much sit comfortably, hold down, and just kind of be a menace, like you'll see me doing in this game, and certainly in the second game as well. So what else is good about this tank? Well, I mentioned the gun, so this is still a tank destroyer at the end of the day. So it's all about that gun. What is this gun like? Well, it's a 155 millimeter cannon that does 750 alpha damage. People do not like to get shot by this thing, and you can do a lot of damage in one shot. As well, it has 276 millimeters of standard penetration on the gun, as well as 320 millimeters of premium APCR penetration. So, with like a lot of tanks that have a premium round with more penetration that are kind of just better than the standard round, some people are inclined to spam full premium, and that's really kind of the case sometimes with this thing, but certainly on the T110E4, the Tier 10 version of this. I'll be doing a video on that at some point. And it's really effective. It's really frustrating to fight against, but there's just really no downside. So you can't really blame the players for doing it. Don't hate the player, hate the game, kind of a thing. So this gun does a lot of damage, and outside of just when you shoot people and do a lot of damage, what tends to happen is when people see a T30 or a tank destroyer that has really high alpha on a corner or a flank, generally speaking, it instills a bit of a fear factor. People don't really want to risk exposing themselves and getting shot by you. And what that does is it kind of helps slow down flanks, slow down pushes, and slow down the game in general. It's kind of what is missing a little bit in Cold War. That game is more about sustained DPM. There's not a whole lot of tanks that do a crazy amount of damage, and tanks in general just have so much health in that mode. Nothing really wrong with Cold War as a game mode. It's a very different experience. I don't personally enjoy it as much as World War II, so I have very few games in it. Usually, it's just if I want to make some credits quickly, I'll play a couple matches. But I'm definitely a World War II player, not a huge Cold War guy. If you and for people that like Cold War, this isn't a political statement. It's in the game. It's been around for a while, and if you enjoy it, then by all means play it. And it's your game. You do what you want, right? The other thing that comes with this giant cannon being 155 millimeters is we talk a little bit about overmatch. So 50 millimeter plates, since you have a 155 millimeter gun and your caliber is more than 3 times 50 millimeter plates, means you can auto pen some pretty important targets without even needing to roll for penetration, which is really nice with these high caliber guns. Mainly talking about those sneaky, dastardly Swedish tier 9 and 10 tank destroyers that have 40 and 50 millimeter plating kind of all over them. They can give 120 millimeter, 122 millimeter, 130 millimeter guns some problems. This cannon here does not care. I love seeing those things because I just have to hit the vehicle and I'm getting 750 damage. So that's really great. And this tank hasn't really changed too much since it's been implemented. The strengths are still strong, and the cons are still cons for this tank. So what are the downsides? This tank is slow. It's not as slow as the T95, which is the other American Tier 9 tank destroyer. It does have more mobility. You'll do 35 kph on the flat, but you have pretty bad terrain resistances and you have really bad power to weight. So even though you're more mobile than, say, a T95, you're definitely not a quick tank destroyer. You're big, you're fat, you're slow. You're a nice big arty magnet, unfortunately. I already love shooting things like T30s because you're tall and wide and long, and you'll catch quite a few of their shells, unfortunately. Being a big machine as well, it doesn't really have great camo. If you build for camo on this thing, you can get the still concealment down a little bit. I'm not built for camo, and I think my still concealment's like 360 meters, give or take. The view range also isn't phenomenal. I run optics on mine. I run optics on most machines, and I think I'm at a view range of 475 meters. So you pass that 455 magical mark, but unfortunately, you're not really going to be out spotting a whole lot of things. So you're a bit reliant on your team, or like I like to play this thing, like you see here, you just got to push up forward. So if people are trying to sit back and snipe, you're close enough to spot them, and then you kind of eliminate that problem. The downside to the gun, it's got good pen, it's got good alpha, and what's really the downside? You can overmatch stuff. The downside is this gun handling and this reload. The gun handling is just atrocious. You'll see me snap some shots in these games more so out of necessity. And just, a broken clock tells the right time twice a day. So you can snapshot, but you need to make sure you're aiming as much as possible because if your reticle isn't mostly fully aimed, I've had shots, it seems like they come 90 degrees out of this cannon and go straight up or straight down. And that's kind of how big tank guns have to handle if we're going to have some semblance of balance in the game. If you had Death Stars and T30s and Jagdpanzer 100s snapping shots like they're mediums, this game would be incredibly unbalanced and frustrating. So this is the first tank destroyer I'm talking about on the channel, so this is kind of a common thing with a lot of guns. Not too many that have huge alpha and decent gun handling. The other downside is kind of like the armor. So the turret can work, it sometimes won't, but the whole armor, this is effectively a tier 7 heavy. When it was first put into the game, it was a T29's hull. So at 102 millimeters on the frontal plate, sloped at maybe 40 degrees, you're not getting more than about 150 millimeters of effective thickness out of that. And that's just not enough at this tier. Maybe like that, you'll bounce a light tank every now and then, but you're not going to be a true heavy tank, even though this thing kind of looks like one. You have to be very, very careful when you're exposing your hull and either try to keep it behind cover or make sure if you do have to trade, because you do have that nice alpha damage, you're accepting the fact that if you show your hull, you are going to have your hull penetrated. And the last kind of real downside to this thing, outside of its general sluggish nature, is the DPM. You don't have good DPM on this tank. Your reload here, I'm running vents and a rammer, and I'm still at over a 16 or 17 second reload. So you're less than 4 rounds a minute rate of fire. You're not gonna melt tanks a lot, and unfortunately, if tanks are smart, as soon as you fire, they know they could easily get 2 shots into you, and suddenly, instead of being a trading master, you're not really trading effectively, and you kinda rely on your teammates for support to cover you in between reloads, and that's really how you have to play this thing. So the way I play this tank, and the way it's kind of traditionally been played, is you don't really want to snipe with it. As counterintuitive as that might seem with a tank destroyers, they're triangles. They sit in the back and they snipe, and you could do that with this tank, but you're not playing it to its full potential. You can see in this game here, I really got up forward, and I included this as my second game, even though it was a pretty decent result. But there were some bots in the game, unfortunately, so I didn't want to make this my quote unquote best game just because I did a boatload of damage and stuff. But getting forward, you see here I've bounced 2,150 damage. A lot of shots that'll just bounce right off this thing's turret. Even if they have ideal circumstances, you still have thick armor and spaced armor and all sorts of stuff. So you can actually play like a heavy tank as long as you're using gun depression and as long as you're hiding that hole, with 750 damage. It feels pretty good. And the other thing too about this tank, well, real quick side note, I did 6,157 of this damage, excuse me, in this game and got 3 kills. And you'd think that's that might be good enough to win. And I won't show you this entire game, but unfortunately, it came down to the fact that they had more living players than dead ones. And that Hori one that I really messed up, he kind of ends up carrying his team to victory and doing over 8,000 damage. So hats off to him. Our last 2 players, there's a heavy tank sitting over at G0 right now. Um, you know, that guy was not the best player, and he could have won us the game, but didn't quite couldn't get there, and he might still be kind of learning the game, unfortunately. So the T30 holds up pretty well these days. It is a very unique tank. It has suffered quite a bit by the general power creep of the game in terms of other ridiculous tanks coming in. Right now, if you were to say tier 9 tank destroyer, which one's the best? Which one comes to mind? I think everyone would probably unanimously agree it's that Night Stalker. That tank is just kind of ridiculous, and you don't have to go to that extreme of an example to find tanks that are just kind of better than this one, because its armor is fallible, its gun is derpy, and some games nothing's going to work for you. Your shots are going to fly off to the side, and you're going to get penetrated through your turret, and you're doing nothing wrong, and artillery smacks you for a couple hundred damage, and the whole thing just seems frustrating. It's why I generally like playing heavies and mediums more. They just tend to feel like they're better machines and more flexible in more games. So, but when this tank works, it works. I mean, that was a pretty good battle over there on that flank, and I think it really showed off what you could do in this machine, and it feels good. I mean, even though I've been playing this game since 2014, basically, I still really enjoy hitting tanks for big numbers, and this isn't the most alpha damage in the game, but 750 is a substantial amount of damage. So you could do well in the tank. You really need to try and make sure that you do have support on flanks when you're going, and really make sure, kind of like we talked about, you're hiding your hole using your gun depression. This tank line in general is pretty satisfying to play with. I think the only real exception being the tier 8, the T28 prototype. A little bit of a stinker in the game, kind of a painful stock grind. And even when it is fully upgraded, you do have a nice 120 millimeter gun, but it's just not good enough these days. That whole armor it's not thick enough for what it needs to do, and the tank is incredibly slow. But the Hellcat Tier 6 is one of the best in the game. The T25 too really plays more like a medium tank, and I do enjoy that tank quite a bit. It's sneaky. It's got a 90 mil gun, you know, fast rate of fire, enough pen for what it wants to do. The prototype, this thing at Tier 9, and then the T110E4, and I'm looking forward to making a video on that, because that machine, when it got its multitude of buffs, it it kind of became one of the most powerful tier 10 tank destroyers and tanks in the game, generally speaking. So tank destroyers as a class, I'm going to be uploading a lot of videos, and most of them will be heavies and mediums and maybe some lights. Tank destroyers, just to me, generally speaking, even though they have huge upsides, the downsides really mean I feel like they are kind of capped to a degree in terms of their skill ceiling, because you can't really side scrape with them because your gun is stuck forward, and you can't really play hold down, and you're kind of pigeonholed into playing that traditional tank destroyer role, right? Final note on that last game, you might have noticed that was actually my first tier 9 game I've had in probably 50 battles of playing tier 9s. So the matchmaker for tier 9 can be pretty brutal. In this last game here, it is a tier 10 game, and you can perform well in tier 10 with a T30. Like I said, tanks see a T30, and they're all scared. So we're going to talk about this game a little bit. It was the best game I had in this session, and I've had it for a little bit. Was just trying to get some more gameplay to put together a video to talk about this machine. Give me one sec. I'll have a sip of my beverage here. Today we're having a nice Strawberry Dreams Monster. That's good stuff. So what you'll see me doing here at the start on Swamp is I'll be playing a bit more of a traditional tank destroyer role. This map has a lot of vision wars going on it, even though there is a good amount of cover. But you can't really commit to a flank too much with something that's not quick, such as a T30, because you'll get spotted out in the open, or at least at an inopportune time before you get into cover, kind of like I do here. And I mean, boom, boom, two bounces right there, and that snapshot there was pretty disgusting on the Murat. If I could find that man, I would apologize to him, because this tank gun does not do that often. It shouldn't do that, but RNG is RNG at the end of the day. And when you snap a shot with these tank destroyer guns, it does feel pretty good. So I am playing that traditional tank destroyer role right here, and I get some early game damage that's kind of impactful, but we kind of make a good play, me and this Object 268 later, to really kind of solidify this win. And getting rid of that Bat Chat 25T right there, the tier 9 one, the AP. Really important kill, because that was the guy who was spotting us. And now we can kind of play with a bit more security over here on this flank as we tried to get some damage on these other tanks on the far ridge line, as well as kind of keep an eye on this other flank on the southern end where you see the rest of the team playing. So we're going to be sitting here for a little bit. This tank is more flexible than a T95 in most turretless DDs, like we talked about. I really don't recommend you use it for sniping, even though I'm doing it here. This is just kind of an early game play. I think you could really have a much higher impact if you use this thing like a pseudo heavy, and if you play it that way as well, it's also going to set you up in good stead when you finally upgrade to the tier 10, the T110E4, because that thing is certainly one of the better heavy tanks in the game, ironically. This poor Murat, I think he just took that first shot damage and said, I don't want to play this game. I just got smacked, and that was a little bit of BS on that. So people sometimes play this thing and are kind of misunderstanding of this whole tank line. At their various tiers, they are tank destroyers, but they play different roles. Like I said, the T25-2, it's more of a medium. The T29, I'm sorry, the T28, the T30, and the T110E4, you can kind of play them more like heavies. And if you guys have grinded out this line, I'd love to know your thoughts. That's where I found the most success. I do have this 3 marked, and that's kind of how I played it to get the most value out of it. Really good shot there on the Lehman Russ. He has a little tiny kind of like slit that's flat and like 230 millimeters. So that's what I was aiming at. I'm really glad that went through. That was only a standard round too, so it was kind of surprising. So the game's kind of progressing here. We're up 3 tanks and some health, so it looks like we're going to win. And I'm really thinking about when the right time is to move on from this position. You've seen all the tanks that have gone south have died, and here the 268's going, and I can't let them go alone, right? So I'm going too. And you have two tank destroyers with really big guns heading down a flank. It's pretty scary to run into. And I get spotted here, and I stop right here before I go around this rock because I know there's going to be tanks right there. And there's that friggin' Night Stalker, and man, 814 damage into the side. God, it just feels good. I can't stand those tanks. I know a lot of people share that sentiment, at least based on some conversations I've had and forum posts on Reddit and stuff like that. That tank is infallible, but that is one of the tanks I see, and I really like to load premium for. So I'm just waiting here to not get spotted anymore, so I can make this cross and support that 268. He's currently fighting an IS4, and this IS4 player, he's pretty good. It's a very strong tank. It has really crazy armor if you know how to use it. And even if you fight 2 tank destroyers, he does a really good job. He kind of gives us a little bit of problems up here. And really kind of delays our push, and his team kind of let him down. But he played well. You're going to see my first shot here. I had a sliver of his lower plate kind of showing right there. I'm not trying to hit his track, but I aim fully, and it still hits his track only somehow. So he's kind of playing that side scrape position. But he's got the 268 in front of me on his flank, so it's hard to angle against us both. I don't know if the 268 is firing premium or not, but if he is, he'll be kind of able to go through almost anywhere, so he probably isn't. Good shot there on the lower plate. Again, these are just standard rounds, and that's a really tough tier 10 heavy tank. You don't need to fire full APCR if you know where to shoot tanks. And if you guys have trouble with tanks, let me know. I could consider maybe doing some content on some common tanks that I think people either misunderstand or just don't know where to penetrate them at certain angles and stuff like that. I might find a way to kind of do some of that content and maybe provide some gameplay examples just to give a little bit more insight. But most tanks I kind of know where to shoot. So here I'm loading HE round. He has 18 health. I just have to hit him anywhere he's going to die, just like that. Upper plate doesn't matter. The 268 did the same a second ago, but he just didn't quite get enough damage done to him. And here's our friend the Night Stalker, and you'll notice I'm loading an APCR round, and he has less than 750 health. Even this guy is scared to push forward and see the T30. So who's really the tier 9 tank destroyer, pal? It's not you. Get out my lobby. That was a very satisfying kill. Really, really enjoyed that one. Felt good. 5,500 damage. Some assisting in there. 4 kills. Tier 10 game. The T30 in 2026. It's still a great tank destroyer. It's an even better tank destroyer if you understand how to play it. And if you're given the opportunity to play it more like a heavy tank, go ahead and get forward. Block some shots with your big American mantlet. Use your American gun depression. Hit him with your American gun. This is a real American tank right here, all right? I do enjoy this thing. It's been in the game a long time. It's still doing pretty well. A little bit power crept, but that's okay. So we're going to look at the end plate here. Victory, 1790 XP. And this was a mastery game. So the more of those I get, I try to at least include one mastery game in each video I do. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Going to be doing some, 1 or 2 more here. I move on Friday this week, so it'll take me a little bit to get set up in my new place, get internet set up and things like that. So the uploads will pause for a little bit, but until then, I will upload any games worthy, I think, and post up maybe 1 or 2 more reviews before I move. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, and take care of yourselves.